So here I want to solve percent problems, either percent increase or decrease using equations. I have this problem, a toy helicopter costs $64. If the sales tax is 10%, how much total will the toy cost? We know that tax adds to the price of the item. So 100% plus 10%, that will be 110%. In decimal, that is equal to 1.10, or you can write 1.1. One strategy I can use to solve it, I can say 64, the original price, plus 10% of 64, which then I will add to 64. So that's 64 plus 0.10 instead of 10% times 64. I know based on order of operation that I have to solve this first, even if I didn't have parentheses, but I put parentheses to make it easier. So I multiply 64 by 0.10, which gives me 6.40, and then I add it with 64, so I get $70.40. That's the price of the toy with the tax. The second strategy I can use, which gives me the answer right away, I can do 64 times 1.10. So this 1.10 is actually coming from here, is the 110%. If I multiply these two, I will get $70.40 right away, and I don't need to add. So this is done in one step. This one is done in two steps. This one says, Mrs. Simonian purchased a new smart TV. The sales tax in Los Angeles is 9.5%. She paid a total of $328.50 for the TV. How much was the original price? We don't know the original price. This is the price after the tax. So it's basically the markup price, the price after increase. I start with 9.5%. I know I can do that, 9.5 divided by 100, to turn this into a decimal. So I get 0.095. So I know that the original price times 1.095 is equal to 328.50. Now this is an equation. Just like if I had x times 5 equals 10, and that in order to solve this I have to do 10 divided by 5, which then x equals 2. So this is kind of small, easy numbers. If I want to find the value of x here, I have to divide 328.50 divide by 1.095. When I do that, it gives me $300. So the original price was $300 for this TV. We can also check our work. We can take the 300, find 9.5% of that. So 300 times 0.095, which is going to give us the amount of tax, and then we add it to 300. That should give us 28.50. Then we add it to 300, which will give us 328.50. So we can take our answer and we can actually go in and check to see if it gives us this value, like if we solved it correctly. So just keep in mind, solving equations, it might look a little intimidating, but if you set up some easy small numbers, then you can figure out how to solve it. Obviously, this is 2 times 5 equals 10. So in order to solve it, I take 10 and divide it by 5, which gives me the answer. So I have to take this number and divide it by this number. The next one, it snowed 15% more in Big Bear than Lake Arrowhead. It is, if it snowed 15 inches in Arrowhead, how many inches did it snow in Big Bear? So I know Big Bear is equal to 115% times Arrowhead. I get this 115% from here. 100 plus 15, 115% divide by 100, that gives me 1.15. Because remember, we can't use percent, we have to turn it into decimal. So we don't have the amount of snow, excuse me, in Big Bear. So I'm going to put x equals 1.15 times 15 inches that snowed in Arrowhead. And I multiply these numbers. I don't have to divide, I just have to multiply these. And that gives me 17.25 inches snowed in Big Bear. The next one, your bill at a restaurant is $230. Sales tax is 10.5%. And you want to leave 18% tip. How much is your tax? How much is your tip? How much is your total? So this one is really step by step. Sometimes the steps are not asked and you are asked the final bill, the final amount. So we want to do this in steps. First, you have the 10.5% tax. 10.5 divided by 100, that gives me 0.105. So 230 times 0.105, that's $24.15 for tax. For tip, we have 18%, that's 18 divided by 100, so that's 0.18. 230 times 0.18, that gives me $41.40 for the tip. If we add these numbers, so we have the 230 plus 24.15 tax plus 41.40 tip, we will get the final bill, which is this much. This problem is a repeat. We solved it with tape diagrams, but now we're solving it with an equation. Compared to last year, the population of Boomtown has increased by 25%. So now it's at 125% because this is increased. So 100 plus 25, that gives me 125%, which is equal to, I can do this, divide by 100, get 1.25. The population is now 6,600. This is after the increase. What was the population last year? So this year population is equal to 125% of last year. So 6,600 equals 1.25 times x. This is similar to the other one that we solved up here. So here, I put some easy small numbers to figure out how I can solve this. So here also same thing, if I want to solve it, I have to divide 6,600 divide by 1.25. Remember that if you do this opposite, like if you do 1.25 divide by 6,600, you will get a completely different and wrong answer. So this is kind of like very important. This is factor, this is a factor, and this is the product. The answer to two numbers being multiplied. So we want to take the product and divide it by the factor and not the other way around. The product is 6,600 divided by one of the factors is 1.25, and that gives me 5,280. This was the population last year. It increased by 25% and ended up being 6,600 this year. I can also take this number, find 25% of it. So 5,280 times 0.25, which will give me 1,320. So I can do 5,280 times 0.25, which is 1,320. And then I add that to 5,280, and that gives me 6,600. This is basically checking to see if we did this correct. This last step is double checking to see that we solved the problem correctly. So I hope this helps.